The late afternoon sun bathes the neighborhood in a golden glow, the kind of serene warmth that makes Magnolia Grove seem like an idyllic place to live. Rows of pristine, cookie-cutter houses line the cul-de-sac, each with manicured lawns, crisp white fences, and driveways polished like showroom floors. It's the type of community that prides itself on its standards, where a blade of grass out of place is treated like a personal insult. Jasmine Carter pulls into her driveway, exhaling a long breath as she shifts in the driver's seat. At 8 months pregnant, even the short trip home from her job at the hospital leaves her exhausted. She pats her belly, feeling the slight kick of her baby girl. "Almost there, little one," she murmurs before stepping out into the humid Georgia air. Jasmine loves her home, a modest, well-kept house she and her husband, Malcolm, worked hard to afford. They were one of the first Black families to move into Magnolia Grove, a reality that came with silent stares and overly polite smiles from neighbors who weren't quite sure how to react. At first, she tried to ignore the subtle microaggressions, the way her white neighbors would accidentally forget her name or act surprised when she mentioned her profession. Then came the HOA. It started small, a note about her garbage bins being improperly stored, then a warning about the seasonal wreath on her door being too large. Harmless enough, annoying but manageable. But as time passed, Jasmine noticed the rules weren't applied evenly. The McAllisters across the street had a flamingo lawn ornament that stayed up year-round. No citations. The Parkers' teenage son left his bike sprawled on the sidewalk for days. Not a word from the HOA. Yet, the Carters received fines for the smallest infractions. Today, Jasmine spots a crisp white envelope tucked under her windshield wiper. She frowns, pulling it free with a sense of dread. Another HOA notice. Unfolding the letter, she reads the offense in bold black letters. Grass height violation, $29 fine. Jasmine stares at her front yard. The grass is lush, green, and neatly trimmed. Maybe a half-inch taller than her neighbors, but certainly not unkempt. She glances around the cul-de-sac, noticing yards that are in far worse shape than hers. Yet somehow it's her home that's been singled out. A flicker of irritation sparks in her chest, but she shakes it off. It's just a $29 fine. Not worth the stress. She has more important things to focus on, like the nursery she's been carefully putting together, the upcoming doctor's appointment, and getting through the last stretch of pregnancy. Still, something about this feels different. The way the HOA keeps targeting her, the pattern of these petty infractions. It gnaws at her. She sighs and heads inside, tossing the letter onto the kitchen counter. Maybe she's overthinking it. Maybe this is just another harmless inconvenience. But deep down, she knows better. This is only the beginning. The next morning, Jasmine wakes to the sound of muffled voices outside. She shifts, wincing as she tries to roll out of bed. 8 months pregnant and already feeling like she's carrying a bowling ball. She takes a steadying breath before shuffling to the window. A small group is gathered on the sidewalk in front of her house. 3 older white residents and a woman in a crisp navy blazer. Jasmine recognizes her immediately. Meredith Lawson, president of the Magnolia Grove Homeowners Association, self-appointed guardian of the neighborhood's integrity, and an absolute nightmare in a pantsuit. She's the kind of woman who treats every interaction like a business transaction. Polite but condescending, her smile never quite reaching her eyes. Jasmine watches as Meredith gestures toward her lawn, her voice a mix of authority and artificial sweetness. "We have to maintain a certain standard, especially on this side of the neighborhood," Meredith says, flicking her manicured fingers toward Jasmine's home. "If we let things slide, it won't be long before property values start dropping." Jasmine's jaw tightens. This side of the neighborhood. She doesn't have full proof yet, but she knows exactly what that means. Stepping away from the window, Jasmine shakes off the creeping anger and heads downstairs. She grabs her phone and steps outside, determined to address the situation head-on. The conversation outside halts the moment they see her. Meredith straightens, flashing a tight smile. "Good morning, Jasmine," she chirps, voice a little too bright. "Lovely day, isn't it?" Jasmine crosses her arms over her swollen belly. What's going on? Meredith exchanges a glance with the other residents before sighing, as if this is all some unfortunate misunderstanding. We've had some complaints about lawn maintenance, she says, and I noticed that your grass is slightly above regulation height. The fine is a small price to pay to keep Magnolia Grove looking its best. Jasmine looks past Meredith at the perfectly even grass. Then she looks at the McAllister's yard. Taller grass, brown patches near the curb. No fine, no morning inspection, just her. Right? Jasmine says slowly, keeping her tone neutral. And how many other people got fined this week? Meredith smiles like a patient teacher explaining a simple concept to a slow student. Our enforcement is based on community feedback. Homeowners care about how things look, Jasmine. I'm sure you understand. The way she says it, like Jasmine is an outsider, a tenant, someone who doesn't belong, sends a prickle of unease down her spine. Jasmine forces a smile, though her heart pounds. Got it. I'll take care of it. Meredith's expression barely flickers, but Jasmine catches the satisfaction in her eyes. She wasn't expecting a fight. Yet, as Jasmine watches the group walk away, that uneasy feeling deepens. This isn't about grass. It never was. Jasmine stares at the HOA fine on her counter, her fingers gripping the edges of the paper. She knows what this is. It's not about grass. It's about control. About reminding her that she and Malcolm don't really belong in Magnolia Grove, and she's done playing along. That afternoon, she logs into the HOA's online portal and pulls up the violation history for her street. As expected, her address stands out. A string of fines dating back months, all for petty infractions. Meanwhile, several homes with blatant violations, including the McAllister's overgrown yard and the Parker's junk-filled driveway, have 0 citations. Jasmine exhales sharply. They're targeting us. She scrolls further and finds a buried page for submitting HOA complaints. A thought strikes her. If she's being harassed, maybe other people are too. She types out a quick message in the neighborhood Facebook group. Has anyone else been getting HOA fines for small things? I just got one for my grass, but I've noticed other yards with worse issues that aren't being cited. Curious if it's just me. Within minutes, replies flood in. Same here. They fine me for my trash cans being visible for too long. But my neighbor leaves his out for days with no issue. I got one last month for a non-conforming mailbox. It's the same model half the street has. It's not just you. I swear they only enforce these rules on certain people. Jasmine's pulse quickens. She isn't imagining this. Then a private message pops up from an account named Mark G. Hey, I don't want to post this publicly, but I used to be on the HOA board. I resigned last year because I didn't like how things were being run. If you're getting unfairly targeted, it's not an accident. Jasmine's stomach twists. Here we go. She messages back immediately. Can you tell me more? After a pause, Mark replies. I shouldn't, but check the HOA board meeting notes from last summer. They don't publish everything, but if you can get the unedited minutes, you'll see exactly what I mean. Jasmine doesn't waste a second. She clicks through the HOA website, but the only meeting notes available are heavily redacted summaries. If what Mark is hinting at is true, then the real records are being hidden. She needs proof. The next day, Jasmine drives to the HOA's office, a sterile little building attached to the neighborhood clubhouse. She enters and is immediately met with Meredith's calculating smile. Jasmine, what a surprise. I'd like to see the full meeting minutes from last summer, Jasmine says, keeping her voice calm but firm. Meredith's smile tightens. I'm afraid those records aren't available to non-board members. Jasmine expected this. Actually, Georgia law requires HOA records to be accessible to homeowners upon request. Meredith's expression flickers, just for a second, before she recovers. Of course, but we need time to process that request. I can get back to you in a few weeks. Weeks. A stall tactic. Jasmine crosses her arms. Then I'll wait. Meredith exhales sharply, as if she's the one being inconvenienced. Jasmine, I really don't think this is necessary. The board makes decisions with the best interests of the community in mind. Maybe if you focused on following the rules instead of looking for loopholes, you wouldn't be in this situation. Jasmine clenches her jaw. There it is. The underlying condescension. The quiet assertion that she should just comply and stop questioning things. But Jasmine refuses to back down. "I'll wait," she repeats. Meredith stares her down for a long moment before finally sighing. "Fine. Have a seat." Jasmine settles into a stiff leather chair while Meredith disappears into the back office. Minutes stretch into nearly an hour before she finally returns, carrying a thin folder. Meredith drops it onto the desk. "There. But I really think you're wasting your time." Jasmine ignores her, flipping through the pages. Most of it is procedural nonsense until she spots a familiar name. Carter Residence, discussed under Neighborhood Aesthetic Concerns. Her blood runs cold as she reads. Certain properties do not reflect the intended character of Magnolia Grove. We should consider proactive enforcement to ensure long-term community appeal. Selective review of homes may be necessary to prevent undesirable precedents. Jasmine grips the paper, her hands shaking. They're not just targeting her. They're targeting people like her. Jasmine's hands tremble as she grips the folder, her eyes scanning the incriminating words over and over. The HOA wasn't just randomly nitpicking her lawn. They were deliberately targeting her family, and others like her, to maintain their so-called neighborhood aesthetic. Her stomach twists, anger rising like a slow-burning fire. They wanted her out. She stands, pressing the folder against her chest, and levels her gaze at Meredith. The older woman watches her with thinly veiled amusement, as if Jasmine is an unruly child throwing a tantrum. "Find what you were looking for?" Meredith asks smoothly, her voice dripping with condescension. Jasmine exhales, steadying herself. "I did." Meredith sighs, tilting her head like she's speaking to someone so naive it's almost adorable. "Jasmine, I know you're upset, but you're taking this out of context. The HOA's job is to maintain order. We have to be selective sometimes." "Selective about who gets harassed?" Jasmine cuts in. "Who gets fined for their grass while others let their yards turn into junkyards? Selective about who gets pushed out." Meredith's smile barely falters, but Jasmine catches the flicker of irritation in her eyes. "Now, Jasmine, nobody is being pushed out. The board simply makes decisions based on what's best for the neighborhood. You'd understand that if you weren't so emotional right now." There it is. That patronizing tone, that quiet insistence that Jasmine should just accept her place, that she's overreacting, that she should be grateful they let her stay in their precious little community at all. Jasmine steps forward, her voice steady. "Actually, I think a lot of people will be very interested in what I just found." Meredith barely blinks. "And who exactly do you think will care? You have no real proof of discrimination. Just meeting notes that could mean anything. Besides," she leans in slightly, lowering her voice, "the board makes the rules, Jasmine. We control what happens here. You don't have the power to change that." Jasmine stares at her, heart pounding, but not from fear. From the certainty that this woman's arrogance is about to cost her everything. A slow smile spreads across Jasmine's face. "I was hoping you'd say that." Meredith's brows knit together in confusion, just as Jasmine pulls out her phone and turns the screen toward her. The live stream is still running. For the past 5 minutes, their entire conversation has been broadcasted straight to the neighborhood Facebook group, which now has hundreds of viewers. The comments flood in faster than Jasmine can read. "Wow, did she just admit they target certain people? This is discrimination, plain and simple. So that's why my family kept getting fines. This is disgusting. They think they control us? Let's see what a lawyer thinks about that." Meredith's face drains of color. "What? I figured you'd try to gaslight me," Jasmine says smoothly, locking eyes with her. "So I made sure everyone could hear the real reason you've been targeting me. And my neighbors? They care a whole lot more than you think." Meredith's hands clench at her sides, her polished mask cracking. This is a violation of privacy. You can't just..." "Oh, but I can..." Jasmine cuts in. Georgia's a one-party consent state. That means as long as I was part of the conversation, I can record and share it however I want. Meredith's mouth opens and closes, searching for a way out, but there isn't one. She's trapped. Then the door to the office swings open. A short, balding man in a stiff suit stands there, his face tight with barely contained anger. William Hendricks, HOA Vice President. He glares at Meredith before turning to Jasmine. "Ms. Carter," he says tensely, "would you mind stepping outside for a moment? The board needs to have a word with Ms. Lawson." Jasmine doesn't move. "Oh, don't worry. I'll wait." Meredith stiffens. "This is ridiculous. You're really taking her side over mine." Hendricks doesn't answer. He just looks at her with quiet, simmering disappointment. The damage is done. The video is out. And Meredith Lawson just lost her power. Meredith stands frozen, her face a mixture of anger and disbelief as the HOA Vice President, William Hendricks, regards her with quiet scrutiny. The room is thick with tension, but Jasmine remains still, watching as the weight of her actions crashes down on the woman who thought she was untouchable. Meredith scoffs, shaking her head. "This is absurd. I was just enforcing HOA rules. Nothing in that conversation proves anything illegal." Jasmine lets out a quiet laugh. "Oh, Meredith, you really don't get it, do you?" She turns her phone screen toward the vice president, replaying the most damning section of the live stream. "The board makes the rules, Jasmine. We control what happens here. You don't have the power to change that." Hendricks' expression darkens. The live chat is still going wild. "This woman needs to be removed from the HOA immediately. This is housing discrimination. She needs to be investigated. Time to lawyer up, Meredith." Meredith's confidence wavers, but she rallies. "This is out of context," she snaps. "This whole thing is being blown out of proportion. The HOA operates within the law." Jasmine raises an eyebrow. "Funny you should mention the law." She turns toward the door, her heart pounding as she calls out, "Detective Brooks? You might want to come in now." The door swings open again, and a tall black man in a sharp navy suit steps inside. Detective Brooks, a close friend of Malcolm's from his law enforcement days, gives the room a slow once-over before settling his gaze on Meredith. "Ms. Lawson," he says in an even tone, "I just reviewed the HOA meeting notes Ms. Carter provided, along with the live stream footage. Based on the language used in those documents and your recorded statements, there's reason to believe the HOA has been engaging in selective enforcement, which could constitute housing discrimination." Meredith visibly pales. That's ridiculous. The HOA is a private organization. We're allowed to enforce neighborhood rules." "You are." Brooks agrees, "as long as those rules are applied equally to all homeowners. But when you deliberately fine minority residents while allowing white homeowners to break the same rules without consequences, that's called disparate impact, and it's illegal under the Fair Housing Act." Jasmine watches as the realization dawns on Meredith. Her perfect world, the one where she and her HOA board got to decide who was acceptable in Magnolia Grove, is cracking. "Why, you can't prove that," Meredith stammers. "This is just speculation." Brooks sighs. "Actually, we can prove it." He nods toward the door. A woman steps in, mid-40s, short brown hair, glasses perched on her nose. She holds a tablet in her hands, her expression unreadable. "This is Linda Romero," Brooks continues. "She's a fair housing investigator, and she's been looking into complaints about Magnolia Grove's HOA for the past 6 months." Jasmine's breath catches. She had no idea. Meredith's mouth falls open. "What? That's not possible." Linda doesn't blink. "Oh, it's very possible. We've received multiple complaints from minority homeowners about selective enforcement of HOA rules. I've already pulled fine records, meeting notes, and resident reports. And now, thanks to Ms. Carter's livestream, we have direct recorded proof of discriminatory intent." She taps on the tablet. "We've also obtained security footage from the clubhouse showing you holding off-the-record meetings with board members, meetings that were never disclosed in official minutes. Meredith sways slightly. "This is a witch hunt," she hisses. "This is my community. I was just trying to keep it from—" She stops herself, but it's too late. Everyone in the room knows exactly what she was about to say. From changing. From becoming a place where families like Jasmine's felt welcome. Hendricks clears his throat, stepping forward. "Meredith," he says, voice cold. "It's over. You've put this entire HOA at risk of a federal investigation. You need to resign. Immediately." Meredith shakes her head in disbelief. "You spineless coward. You were fine with all of this until we got caught." Hendricks doesn't deny it, but he also doesn't waver. "You're done here." For the first time since Jasmine met her, Meredith looks small. Trapped. "No," she whispers, shaking her head violently. "I built this neighborhood. I made it desirable. Without me, Magnolia Grove would have gone to—" Jasmine steps forward. "Gone to who, Meredith?" Meredith doesn't answer. She doesn't have to. Brooks lets the silence hang before finally speaking. "Ms. Lawson, please hand over your HOA credentials. We'll be proceeding with an official complaint to the Department of Housing and Urban Development. And I'd suggest getting a very good lawyer." Meredith's hands shake as she reaches into her purse and pulls out her HOA badge, slamming it onto the desk. Her face is red with rage, her jaw tight. "You think you've won?" She spits at Jasmine. "You don't belong here. No matter what you do, you'll never be one of us." Jasmine meets her gaze, steady and unshaken. "I don't need to be one of you, Meredith. I just need to make sure no one else has to deal with people like you." The words land like a hammer. Meredith storms out, slamming the door so hard the walls tremble. But the power she once wielded over this community is gone. Forever. The news spreads like wildfire. Within hours, Magnolia Grove is buzzing. Neighbors whispering on driveways, text threads exploding, and local news vans parked outside the HOA office. By morning, Meredith Lawson's downfall is all anyone can talk about. The HOA board holds an emergency vote, stripping Meredith of her presidency. Hendricks, eager to save his own skin, releases a public statement distancing himself from her actions. But it's too late. The damage is done. And the real consequences. They hit hard. Meredith's selective enforcement tactics trigger a formal investigation by the Department of Housing and Urban Development. The fines she illegally imposed on minority homeowners? Now under legal scrutiny. The off-the-record meetings caught on security footage? Strong evidence of housing discrimination. Then comes the final blow. A civil rights attorney, after seeing Jasmine's viral livestream, announces a class action lawsuit against the Magnolia Grove HOA. And Meredith? She's at the center of it. The lawsuit gains national attention. News anchors dissect the case, calling it a textbook example of modern housing discrimination. Even HOA reform advocates jump in, using Magnolia Grove as proof of why unchecked HOAs must be held accountable. Meredith tries to fight back. She releases a tearful video, claiming she's the victim of cancel culture, that she was only enforcing community standards, that she's being attacked for trying to maintain the character of Magnolia Grove. But no one's buying it. The comments flood in. "You mean maintain the whiteness of Magnolia Grove? Lady, you broke the law. This isn't cancel culture. It's justice." Funny how HOA rules only applied when it suited you. And the worst part for Meredith? The people she once controlled, her own neighbors, turn against her. Homeowners who previously kept quiet now come forward with their own stories of unfair treatment. Former board members admit Meredith coerced them into rubber-stamping her biased policies. Even some of her old friends, realizing she's a sinking ship, cut ties completely. She's toxic, untouchable. By the time HUD issues an official ruling against the HOA, Meredith is forced to sell her house to cover mounting legal fees. The same neighborhood she once ruled over, now a place she can never show her face in again. And Jasmine? She stays. Not just because it's her home, but because she won. Neighbors who once watched silently now stop by, offering quiet apologies. Some mean it. Others just don't want to be the next to get exposed. Either way, Jasmine doesn't care. What matters is that Magnolia Grove is changing. A new HOA election is held, with fair-minded residents stepping up, people who actually care about the community, not just about keeping it exclusive. And Jasmine? She finally breathes. The stress, the late nights, the constant battle just to be treated fairly. It's over. She can sit on her porch without watching her back. Walk outside without worrying if some new fine is waiting in her mailbox. One evening, as she watches the sun set over Magnolia Grove, Malcolm wraps an arm around her. "We did it," he says softly. Jasmine smiles. No, they did it to themselves. And with that, Magnolia Grove, once ruled by fear and bias, finally feels like a place worth calling home.